What if I told you that the delivery apps really need to change your description of the word tipping? I think most of you will probably agree with this one. It's not really a particularly controversial take, but I think it really needs to be retitled as bid for service, which is what it really is. Tipping, of course, traditionally has always been an after-the-fact action, where you give somebody an extra money for good service. That's not the way delivery apps work. And DoorDash, to their credit, has sort of somewhat explained this when they explained that that drivers accept orders based off of tip amounts, and so that one was true. We do, but it's really a bid for service. Tipping in the traditional sense, and I believe the word in this case is somewhat misleading. I don't know if they have any reason to be misleading on this one, in this regard, other than to maybe make people feel more comfortable about giving the extra money and tying it to a traditional term. Again, these apps do an excellent job of wordplay, and they use terms to express things that may only be partially be true. This is probably one of those. They probably leave it as explain it as a tip, basically to tie your mind more to the traditional generosity of it, and therefore encourage customers to give those. So therefore, but it's not a tip. It's a bid for service. That's what it really is. I really wish that the apps would start calling it this. They would just call it a bid for service and stop calling it a tip. Uber Eats, even traditional Ubers themselves have actual legitimate tips. This came into play for me 2 weeks ago when I was going to the MSP airport, and the first driver, of course, took a totally different direction, put me in the east side of St. Paul. If you know the Twin Cities, you know that Forest Lake is very far north of the metro. Not far north of the metro, but it's on the northern edge of the metro area, and my market is a little bit different than most of yours for delivery purposes. But I wind up on the direction, he winds up taking a road that heads east to Wisconsin. He got no tip for obvious reasons, trying to take me way out of the way. A second driver who came into St. Paul picked me up, got me to the airport correctly, and he himself was actually flummoxed on to why I wound up where I did. He got $20, which for the relatively short distance of the remainder of the trip is probably very high. $20 to go from downtown St. Paul to MSP Airport, not that far, about 7 or 8 miles. But he bailed me out of a difficult situation. I still made my flight on time and was doing okay. But that's a legitimate, that's an actual tip. So even Uber, even within its ride-sharing platform, still explains it as a tip and in practice is a tip. But what they do in food delivery and what they do inside, what DoorDash does inside of food delivery is not a tip. It's a bid for service. It's part of the package and it's part of the offer to entice a driver to deliver you your food, because the companies are not willing to pay anywhere near the actual expenses involved in said delivery. Now, so I think it needs to be retitled as bid of service. That's my suggestion for the apps. And again, DoorDash, to credit, has started to explain this a little bit better, but they still call it a tip. I think the terminology should be changed. So in short, that's my spiel for the day. It's not very complicated, not very long, but anyway, same day taping. This is coming out on Sunday morning. And I'll be back tonight with another one. Haven't decided what that's going to be yet, but I'm sure I'll think of something. But you folks have a good, good Sunday. Do Sunday things as you wish, and I will see you later. Peace out, homies.